There is a moment, almost imperceptible, that precedes every great inner transformation. It's not an explosion, nor a grand revelation. It's a subtle exhaustion, like an echo repeating inside the mind, a silent weight that no one sees, but that you feel every day, in rushed decisions, in nonstop thoughts, in the sense of always being one step behind peace. That's when something begins to whisper inside you, not advice, nor a ready-made answer, but a question, softly knocking on the door of your soul. Are you ready to listen beyond the noise? And when you finally stop, not from giving up, but from being tired of trying to control everything, a silence is born. Not outer silence, the kind that depends on a calm environment, but inner silence. The kind that settles in when you release the effort, let go of urgency, let go of the need to understand everything right now. In that instant, you're not escaping the world. You're simply refusing to keep being hijacked by it. And it's there, in the space between one thought and another, that a new perception begins to arise. A living presence, silent, subtle, but so real that everything in you feels it. This video is an invitation, not to learn a one more technique, but to stop, to stay, to feel, to allow the silence to reveal what the noise has hidden for so long. Because when you remain in it long enough, everything changes, and so do you. The silence that deconstructs the old self. At first, silence may feel like relief, a place of rest, a well-deserved pause after so much inner noise. But as you remain in it, something unexpected begins to happen. Instead of the immediate peace the ego wants, discomfort arises. It's like entering a dark room you've avoided for years, a space where nothing is hidden, only forgotten. Suddenly, what you thought was resolved resurfaces, old fears, memories that seemed healed, uncomfortable sensations that were buried beneath layers of distraction. Silence, far from being just calm, acts like a vibrational mirror. It doesn't create anything new, it simply reveals. And what it reveals at the core is the old self, the identity built on fear, control, and the attempt to protect from pain. This identity we call self is made of inherited voices, limiting beliefs, repeated emotional patterns, and stories we tell about who we are. And while the mind is busy, that self feels solid, feels real. But in silence, where the mind loses its platform of command, that structure begins to dissolve. There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's the most sacred process in the evolution of consciousness. But it is disorienting, because what emerges in that silent space is not your new self. Not yet. First comes everything that needs to go. What was there all along, buried deep in the mind, silently shaping your life without you noticing? True silence is a deprogrammer. It doesn't fight the ego. It simply withdraws the energy that feeds it. And without that energy, without drama, without justification, without struggle, the old self begins to disintegrate, not because you forced it, but because there is no longer vibrational support for it to remain. This is where many feel afraid. They mistake the internal collapse for failure. But it's not a mistake, it's a portal. The discomfort is not the end. It's the beginning of liberation. It's the moment when you stop trying to fix yourself and, for the first time, begin to see yourself beyond the persona you built. Imagine a mask worn for so long it seemed part of your face. When it starts to fall, it feels strange, maybe even frightening. But soon you realize what's emerging beneath is something much more true. Lighter, more present. This process of deconstruction is only possible because silence creates space. And in that space, everything that was compressed, repressed, forgotten, is allowed to surface. Not to hurt you, but to be released. Because what is seen with full presence, without resistance, dissolves. Presence has that power, and so the old self begins to fade, without struggle, without guilt, without hurry. Simply through the firm decision to no longer run, to stay, to remain, and to let the silence do what the mind never could. Dissolve what is false to reveal what is real. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. But it is also liberating, because each layer that falls brings you closer to the essence that was always there. Silent, loving, pulsing behind all your noise. Silence does not destroy you. It only removes what was never you. The pause where truth is revealed. There is a rare, precious moment when the mind goes quiet, not out of exhaustion, but surrender. It's a pause so deep it feels outside of time. Nothing moves, no seeking continues, no question needs an answer. And almost miraculously, something is revealed in that space between thoughts. Truth. But this truth does not come in words. It doesn't arrive as a logical conclusion or a new belief to replace the old ones. It is felt, recognized, silently understood, as if a forgotten part of you has finally come home. Because there, in that quiet field, you realize you were never the voice in your head. You were never the stream of thoughts endlessly trying to define you. You are the one who observes. That realization changes everything. For the first time, you're no longer submerged in the mind's current. You are at the edge, witnessing. And this simple internal shift is the turning point of consciousness. To observe without identifying is the beginning of freedom. When you see a thought arise, and do not confuse yourself with it, a new dimension opens, the dimension of presence. It's like being inside a dream and suddenly knowing you're dreaming. The content of the dream continues, but you're no longer a prisoner. You see, feel, perceive, but do not get lost. This is the truth silence reveals. You are the awareness behind it all, the space in which everything happens, not the content that comes and goes. And it doesn't need to be understood intellectually. In fact, mental understanding may get in the way. What transforms is the direct experience of the separation between thought and presence, between what arises and the one who observes it, between the noise and the silence that contains it. When this clarity comes, even for a few seconds, something rearranges energetically, as if the field around you recognizes your new frequency. Science is beginning to capture this. Studies on meditation and mindfulness show that when we observe a thought without judgment, activity in certain brain areas linked to the ego diminishes. It's as if the brain for a moment rests from the need to defend an identity. The system relaxes, the body aligns, and energy begins to flow again. Spiritually, this is seen as a return to source, a reunion with what has always been there, but was obscured by constant identification with the mind. In this conscious silence, you no longer need to protect, prove, fix, or control. You simply are. And this pure being, formless, timeless, effortless, is what has always been waiting to be remembered. Many seek this truth in books, in teachers, in retreats, in techniques. But it is not found anywhere the mind can reach. It is in the pause, in the gap, in that moment when you stop seeking for just a moment and simply remain. In that space, there is no conflict, no past or future, only the clarity of now, so alive, so subtle, so powerful that all attempts to describe it fall short. Yet even without words, because something inside aligns, and even if the world around you remains the same, you are no longer the same observer. That is the truth that transforms, not the one you memorize, but the one you embody. And for it to be revealed, all that's needed is a moment of true silence, a pause, a surrender. And then consciousness awakens, not as some grand event, but as a return to what you have always been. The invisible shift in how you observe. There is a shift that happens without announcement, without warning, without applause. An internal transition that doesn't rely on words or rational decisions. It simply begins when you remain in silence long enough. And interestingly, it doesn't start by changing the world around you, but by changing how you observe it. It's subtle, almost imperceptible at first. You still wake up in the same body, face the same challenges, speak with the same people. But something in you no longer reacts the same way. Where there was once immediate resistance, there is now space. Where there was automatic judgment, a pause appears. And in that pause, everything changes. Because it's in that space that a new awareness begins to move through you. An awareness that is not interested in fixing the world, but in seeing it with wider eyes. It is this invisible shift in how you observe that quietly transforms your reality. Not because you deny what happens, but because you stop identifying so deeply with every story the mind tells. Suffering at its core is the result of full identification with thought. And when you observe without getting lost in it, something in you becomes free. Imagine looking at a sky full of clouds. Before each cloud was a worry, a problem to solve, an emotion to control. Now you see the sky too, and the sky is your awareness. It is always there, even when cloudy. This realization doesn't remove life's challenges, but completely changes how you relate to them. You begin to sense that there is something more truthful in you than the immediate reaction, and it is this space between stimulus and response that expands. What once seemed automatic now becomes optional. You no longer need to react hastily, defend yourself from everything, or prove anything. You simply observe. And in that observing, you choose with more clarity. Quantum physics symbolically already points to this. The observer influences the behavior of the particle. The way we look at something changes what is being seen. And this doesn't just apply in scientific experiments. It happens every day, with every thought, every emotion, every interaction. When you change how you see, reality begins to reorganize. Spiritually, it is said that the external world is merely a mirror of your internal state. But it's not a mirror of what you think. It's a mirror of the frequency you hold while observing. That's why, when you observe with presence, with acceptance, with more space than reaction, the field around you responds, relationships shift, synchronicities increase, and situations that once felt blocked begin to flow. It's not magic, it's vibrational coherence. You begin to live not as someone trying to control life, but as someone willing to dance with it. To listen to what it wants to show you rather than impose what you think must happen. And slowly, this new observer, softer, more aware, more silent, becomes your natural state. This is when you realize true change was never about transforming the outer world. It was about transforming your gaze, the way you perceive, feel, interpret. And this new gaze doesn't come from effort, but from silence, from the space you created by no longer reacting to everything. This change is invisible to others, but unmistakably felt by your soul. It is what opens doors where once there were only walls. It's what allows you to see beauty where you once only saw problems. And it's what proves, without words, that reality was never fixed. It has always been a reflection of the way you observe it. The field begins to respond to your silence. Something begins to happen when you stay in silence long enough. It's not an abrupt change, nor an explosive transformation. It is something deeper, more subtle, almost imperceptible to the mind, but intensely perceived by awareness. The field around you, once indifferent or chaotic, begins to respond. And not because you did anything, but precisely because you stopped doing. This silence is not apathy. It is not passivity. It is a refined vibrational state, coherent, aligned with a higher frequency of presence. When you enter it, even unconsciously, you emit a new signal. A vibration not born of a mind trying to manifest, but of a consciousness recognizing its unity with all things. And the field, that invisible ocean of intelligent energy connecting everything, responds to this new signal with mathematical precision. Everything in the universe is in constant vibrational communication. Words are unnecessary at this level. The field responds to your coherence, not your speech. And when you enter true silence, you stop emitting energetic noise, anxiety, fear, control, resistance, and begin to emit purity, clarity, presence, and that changes the field. People begin to drift away, others draw near. Situations that once felt blocked begin to move without your pushing. Emotions that were stuck dissolve into a peace you didn't know you could feel. You didn't change anything externally, only the point from which you vibrate, and that's how the field responds. This is one of the greatest paradoxes of conscious life. The more you force, the less it flows. The more you align, the more everything around you aligns. Because the universe does not respond to your surface intention. It responds to your true vibration, and vibration doesn't lie. It is the energetic translation of your internal state. That's why, when your silence stops being a lack of words and becomes expanded presence, the field notices. It's as if the entire universe pauses to listen to you when you finally stop screaming inside. And this cosmic listening doesn't need effort to happen, because you are not trying to manipulate the field. You are remembering that you are part of it. When that remembrance settles in, everything starts to operate with more harmony. Coincidences increase. Time seems to reorganize. What was far draws near. What was tangled begins to dissolve. And none of it comes from the ego trying to attract results. It comes from the soul entering a state of coherence. Spiritually, this is the moment when the separation between you and life begins to disappear. You are no longer trying to create your reality from lack. You are allowing reality to emerge from your wholeness. It is a silent dance between your state of being and the intelligence of the universe. The field always responds. The difference is that before, it was reacting to your internal noise. Now it is responding to your clarity. And that changes everything. Because in this new state, you are no longer searching for signs. You are the sign. You become the frequency you want to live. And the field has no choice but to mirror it back to you. That is the beauty of true silence. It communicates more to the universe than 1,000 requests. It creates a resonance so clear, so powerful, that reality can't help but reconfigure itself. No effort, no hurry, no control. Simply because, at last, you've been silent enough to be heard by everything. The silent love that was always waiting. There is a presence that has always been with you. Silent, patient, constant. It doesn't demand, doesn't accuse, doesn't try to prove anything. It simply waits. Waits for the noise to quiet, for the mind to tire, for the heart to surrender. This presence is love, but not the conditioned love, shaped by expectations or wounded by rejection. It is silent love, the kind that arises when all defenses fall and only what's real remains. This love doesn't shout, it doesn't impose. It doesn't need validation because it doesn't depend on recognition. It is the field in which everything rests, the subtlest yet most powerful vibration in the universe. And no matter how much the mind tries to find it in other people, achievements, or moments of ecstasy, it only reveals itself in silence. When you remain in silence long enough, you begin to feel something you weren't consciously seeking. It's not a fleeting emotion, it's a state, a thoughtless certainty, an inner warmth that doesn't burn, only embraces. It's like returning home after wandering for ages in unfamiliar lands. You don't need to do anything there, just be. Because in that space, you are completely accepted, exactly as you are. This silent love is not the opposite of fear. It's what holds you even in the moments fear arises. It doesn't require you to be perfect to reveal itself. It only asks that you be present enough to feel it. What keeps it from being perceived isn't in its absence, but the constant noise generated by the mind. It is this internal noise that blocks your sensitivity to receive what is already here. So silence isn't just a portal to peace, it's the key that opens the door to unconditional love. A love that is not outside of you, but the very nature of your consciousness. It is not directed at anyone in particular. It simply vibrates, overflows. And when you touch it, even for a moment, you realize it is enough. That everything you desperately sought outside already existed, resting quietly inside you. True spirituality doesn't take you somewhere new. It reveals the place you never left. And that place is filled with calm, silent, essential love. It's the space between thoughts, the light behind your eyes, the stillness that witnesses chaos without being touched by it. There are no words that can fully describe it, but when it reveals itself, your entire being knows. It is familiar. It is eternal, and it is deeply transformative. When you touch this love, wounds no longer need explanation. They begin to dissolve simply because they've finally been seen by a presence that does not judge. This is the deepest healing force there is. It doesn't analyze the past, doesn't demand redemption, doesn't offer solutions. It simply embraces. And in that silent embrace, everything begins to realign. This love cannot be manufactured. It doesn't depend on elaborate practices. It reveals itself when effort ceases, when you simply stop, breathe, and remain. It is in that surrendered state that it draws near, or rather, that you draw near to it, because truthfully, it was never far. The mind may doubt, the personality may get distracted, but the soul knows, it always has. What you are at your core is pure love vibrating in silence. Everything else is just a passing layer. And when you touch that truth, even briefly, it stays with you. It transforms your gestures. It quiets your conflicts. And it begins to move in the world through your presence. There is no urgency in this love. It knows how to wait. And now, maybe for the first time, you are ready to wait for it too, to feel it, to recognize it, because silence brought you here, and it was always here, waiting for you to be as well. The return as another being. You return, but something is different, and it's not the world. The same noises still echo outside, the same people, the same routines, the same stimuli that once pulled you away from yourself are still there. But now you are no longer so vulnerable to them. There is space between you and what happens, a gap of awareness, and it is within this gap that your new strength lives. Silence did something no mental effort could. It unhooked you from the old pattern of automatic reaction. What once triggered intense emotions now simply passes through you without taking over. What once dragged you into chaos now merely brushes your energetic skin, unable to reach the center you now inhabit. Because something in you has shifted. A subtle realignment has taken place. You've stopped being the one who reacts and become the one who observes with clarity. This return is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of life lived with a new quality of perception. And so, you move differently. You walk on the same ground, but with a different step. You look through the same physical eyes, but there is a new light behind the gaze. Hurry has lost its meaning. Judgment has lost its grip. The need to be right, to prove, to protect, all of it starts to fall like leaves that have served their season. People notice. Even if they can't explain it, they sense something has changed in you. Your presence communicates more than your words. There is a calm that wasn't there before, a deeper listening, a lightness that didn't come from outside. And perhaps the most curious thing is this: you're not trying to be different, you simply are. What is revealed in this return is not a new version of you created by the mind, but a more essential being. Less persona, more essence. Less noise, more frequency. You've stopped operating from defense and started living from awareness. And that changes everything. Not because the world changed, but because you now respond to it from another place. You've learned to remain, to breathe within discomfort without being consumed by it, to listen without rushing to answer, to feel without immediately defining yourself by the feeling. And that is power. Not the power that imposes, that conquers, that dominates, but the power that holds, that anchors, that vibrates so firmly in itself that it begins to realign everything around it. It's inevitable that at some point you return to the world. But now you no longer return the same. The outer noise doesn't disappear, but it no longer captures you. Pain may still arise, but it no longer defines you. The challenges remain, but you face them with more presence than weight. Because now, you are rooted in something that does not shift. This new being that emerges from within doesn't need explanation. It simply lives, expresses, radiates, and slowly it transforms your surroundings. Not by convincing, but by vibrational contagion. Your silent frequency begins to touch other consciousnesses. Your way of being inspires other presences. And so the return ceases to be just individual and becomes collective. You have returned. But the world receiving you is no longer the same, because now it is seen through eyes washed by silence. And everything seen clearly begins to reorganize. Everything observed truthfully transforms. The return is not the end of silence. It is its expansion. Because now, even in the midst of noise, you remain whole. To remain is the new path. And silence, far from being left behind, continues breathing with you. From within. Silence doesn't change the world. It changes how you perceive it. And that shift in perception changes everything. Because when you observe with different eyes, feel from another center, vibrate from another place, reality responds. You no longer need to chase what is already yours by nature. You only need to be silent, deeply, until the false dissolves and the true reveals itself. Stay in that silence until your vision changes, until your presence speaks louder than your words, until peace no longer depends on what happens, but on who you are. That is the invitation. Remain in silence long enough and watch what begins to bloom. Because life, real life, begins the moment everything falls quiet within.